storm came from the east, rolling across the New Mexico desert like the wrath of God himself. October winds howled through the sagebrush, carrying sand that stung like buckshot. Lightning split the black sky, illuminating the wasteland in fractured bursts of white fire. 40 miles from anywhere that mattered, a single cabin stood defiant against the tempest. Inside, Flint Brandon sat alone. The lamp on his table flickered as wind found the cracks in the timber walls. He didn't look up. His hands moved with the precision of ritual, cleaning the Colt revolver that had saved his life more times than he cared to count. Oil, cloth. The barrel gleamed in the uncertain light. 5 years. 5 years since he'd walked away from everything. 5 years since the badge that once meant honor became just another piece of tin worn by men who sold their souls for gold. The whiskey bottle beside him was half empty, or half full, depending on how a man chose to see the world. Flint had stopped choosing optimism a long time ago. He was 30 years old and felt 50. The mirror didn't lie. The scar that ran from his left cheekbone to his jaw was courtesy of Captain Bram Warren and two other Texas Rangers who'd decided Flint's principles were worth less than $10,000 in cattle baron money. They'd beaten him bloody, left him for dead in the Chihuahuan desert with a canteen full of sand and a warning, stay gone or stay dead. Flint had chosen the first option. But some nights when the whiskey hit just right and the memories came flooding back, he wondered if he'd made the wrong choice. Thunder cracked overhead. The cabin shuddered. He set down the revolver, reached for the bottle, poured 2 fingers into a tin cup. The amber liquid caught the lamplight. Beautiful in its way. Honest, unlike most things in this world. The wind screamed. Rain began to hammer the roof, a sound like 1,000 horses stampeding across timber. And then beneath the chaos of the storm came another sound. Knock, knock, knock. Flint's hand froze halfway to his mouth. His eyes cut to the door. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, that old ranger instinct that had kept him alive through ambushes and gunfights, and the kind of violence that turned good men into ghosts. Nobody came out here. Not by accident, not in a storm like this. He set down the cup without drinking. His fingers found the Colt. The weight of it was familiar, comforting. He stood moving quietly despite his size and crossed to the window. Through a gap in the shutters, he scanned the darkness. Nothing, just rain and wind and the violent dance of shadows. The knock came again, louder, more desperate. Flint moved to the door, rifle in his left hand, now Colt in his right. He stood to the side of the frame the way he'd been trained. Never stand center. A bullet doesn't care about manners. Who's there? His voice was rough from disuse. He didn't talk much these days. The desert didn't require conversation. A woman's voice, barely audible over the storm. Please, I need help. His mouth set in a hard line. A woman. Out here in this weather, every instinct screamed trap. But there was something in that voice. Fear, real fear, the kind you can't fake. He pulled back the bolt, kept the rifle raised, and opened the door 6 inches. The wind tried to rip it from his hands. Rain slashed sideways into the cabin, soaking the floorboards. And there, illuminated by lightning's brief mercy, stood a woman who looked like she'd walked straight out of the Old Testament. She was Apache. That much was clear from the high cheekbones, the dark eyes, the way she stood, despite exhaustion, proud even in desperation. Her black hair hung in wet ropes past her shoulders. Her doeskin dress clung to her body, soaked through, revealing a form that would have made weaker men forget their principles. But it was her eyes that stopped Flint cold. Fierce, burning with something that looked like defiance and determination wrapped around a core of bone-deep fear. I need shelter, she said, raising her voice against the wind. Just one night. Flint didn't move. His mind was running calculations. Woman alone. Storm. Middle of nowhere. This close to the Arizona territory line, it could be Geronimo's people running from the cavalry. Could be worse. Could be bait. Where'd you come from? East. My horse died 5 miles back. Please. She swayed slightly, caught herself. Just one night. I'll be gone at dawn. Lightning flashed again. Flint saw it, then the dark stains on her dress that weren't just water. Blood. Not much, but enough. She was hurt. He'd been many things in his life. Ranger. Fighter. Killer when necessary. But he'd never been the kind of man who left a woman to die in a storm. He lowered the rifle, stepped aside. Get in. She didn't hesitate, didn't thank him either. Just moved past him into the cabin with a grace that spoke of strength held barely in check. Flint closed the door against the wind, shot the bolt home. When he turned, she was standing by his firewater, pooling at her feet. She didn't look at him. Her gaze swept the cabin instead, taking inventory. The single room, the bed in the corner, the table with his weapons. The shelf with supplies. She was measuring escape routes same as he would have done. Smart woman. There's a towel on the chair, Flint said, moving to put the table between them. Not quite trust, not yet. Coffee's still hot. She took the towel, pressed it to her face. When she lowered it, her eyes found his for the first time. You're Flint Brennan. It wasn't a question. Every muscle in Flint's body went rigid. His hand drifted toward the Colt on his hip. How do you know that name? My father told me. She wrapped the towel around her shoulders, still shivering. Joseph Redfeather. He said you were the only lawman in 3 territories who couldn't be bought. He said if I ever needed help, I should find you. Joseph, the name hit Flint like a fist to the sternum. He remembered. 10 years back when he was still green, still believed the badge meant something. A gang of rustlers had been terrorizing the ranches along the Pecos River. Joseph Redfeather Apache Scout had tracked them for Flint. 3 weeks through hell country. The old man had saved Flint's life twice during that hunt. Joseph sent you. Flint's voice softened just a fraction. Where is he? He all right? The woman's face changed. Pain crossed it like a shadow. He's dead, 3 months ago. They killed him for this. She reached into a leather pouch at her waist, pulled out something wrapped in oilcloth. When she unwrapped it, Flint saw a ledger. Old worn, the leather cover stained dark with something that might have been blood. She set it on his table. The movement was deliberate, almost ceremonial. My name is Nolan Redfeather, and that book is the reason my father died. Flint stared at the ledger, didn't touch it. What is it? The truth. Nellen moved closer to the fire, holding her hands out to the warmth. 15 years of truth, every name, every bribe, every murder covered up, every piece of land stolen. My father kept records. He was educated, you see. Mission school. They taught him to read and write, thinking they'd make him civilized. Instead, they gave him a weapon. She turned to face Flint. In the firelight, he could see her beauty more clearly now. Not the soft beauty of drawing rooms and society balls. This was something harder. A knife wrapped in silk. The kind of woman who'd survived things that would have broken lesser souls. He wrote it all down, she continued. Judges who sold verdicts, sheriffs who looked the other way while ranchers murdered Apache for their water rights, Indian agents who stole food meant for the reservations and sold it for profit, rangers who, she stopped eyes on Flint, who took money to make problems disappear. The words stuck in his throat. Rangers. Yes. He reached for the ledger. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. The pages were filled with careful handwriting. English, names, dates, amounts. He flipped through it, scanning, and there on page 17 he found it. Captain Bram Warren, Texas Rangers, August 1881, accepted $10,000 from Jameson Crow to cease investigation into murder of 3 Apache water rights claimants. Conspired with Rangers Miller and Stokes to assault Ranger Flint Brennan when he refused to participate. Left Brennan for dead in desert. The words blurred. Flint's hands clenched on the ledger. 5 years. 5 years he'd thought maybe he'd imagined how deep the corruption went. Maybe it was just Warren, just bad luck, just one rotten apple. But here were 50 more names. 60, 100. Federal agents, territorial judges, town sheriffs, even a U.S. Marshal. All of it documented. All of it damning. Jesus Christ, Flint whispered. My father died to protect that. Nalen's voice was steady, but Flint could hear the grief underneath, like bedrock beneath sand. 3 men came in the night, wore masks, but I know who sent them. Bram Warren. He found out about the ledger, tried to buy my father's silence. When that didn't work, she didn't finish, didn't need to. Flint closed the book. His mind was racing. Why bring it to me? I'm not a ranger anymore. Haven't been for 5 years. Because my father said you were the only one who chose honor over gold, the only one who couldn't be bought. She moved closer to the table, close enough that Flint could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. I need to get this to someone who can use it, someone in authority who's still clean. My father said that was you. Your father was wrong. The words came out harsher than Flint intended. I don't have authority. I don't have anything except this cabin and a past I'm trying to forget. Then help me get it to Santa Fe. There's a U.S. Marshal there. Wilson, my father said he was honest. Flint laughed bitter. Wilson, maybe, if he hasn't been bought in the last 5 years. But getting to Santa Fe means crossing 200 miles of territory where every lawman, every bounty hunter, every man with a gun and a price will be hunting you. Us, Nalen corrected. They'll be hunting us. The moment you opened that door, you became part of this. She was right. Flint knew it in his bones. The men who killed Joseph wouldn't stop. They'd track Nolan. And when they found her here in his cabin, they'd assume he was involved. Men like Warren didn't leave witnesses, didn't take chances. He looked at her, really looked at her. She was exhausted, scared, but there was steel in her spine. This woman had watched her father die, had run 3 months with killers on her trail, had walked 5 miles through a desert storm, and she was still standing. "One night," Flint said finally. "We'll figure out what to do come morning. But tonight you sleep. I'll keep watch." For the first time, something like relief crossed Naline's face. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Flint poured coffee into a second cup, handed it to her. "This might be the worst decision either of us ever made." She took the coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. Even through the cold of her skin, Flint felt something. A spark. Connection. Dangerous. He pulled his hand back, moved to the bed. "You take this. I'll sleep on the floor." "I can't." "Yes, you can." He grabbed a blanket, tossed it near the fire. "Get some rest. Storm should pass by morning." Nolan hesitated, then nodded. She sat on the bed, still holding the coffee cup. Flint busied himself checking his weapons, reloading the rifle, counting ammunition, anything to avoid looking at her. But he could feel her eyes on him. "Flint," he turned. She was silhouetted against the firelight, her dark hair beginning to dry, falling in waves around her shoulders. "My father was right about you," she said quietly. "You are a good man." Flint didn't answer, didn't know how to. He turned back to his guns, waiting for her to lie down, waiting for sleep to take her so he could think. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, the fire crackled. And between them, unspoken, was the knowledge that come dawn, everything would change. Nolan finally lay down. Within minutes, her breathing deepened. Exhaustion had claimed her. Flint sat by the fire rifle across his knees. He opened the ledger again, read it cover to cover by lamplight. Each name was a nail in the coffin of his old life. Each entry was proof that the system he'd believed in, had bled for, was rotten to the core. But it was also something else. It was hope. Proof meant justice was still possible. If this got into the right hands, it could burn down the corruption like wildfire through dry grass. Or it could get them both killed. Probably both. He looked at Nolan sleeping peacefully for the first time in God knew how long. Joseph's daughter. The old man had trusted Flint with his most precious treasure, both the ledger and the girl. Flint stood, moved to the window. Through the shutters, he scanned the darkness. The rain was lessening, wind dying down. In a few hours, dawn would come, and with it, he suspected, would come hell. He was right. The first hint came just before sunrise. Flint had dozed briefly, dreamless and alert, the sleep of a man who'd learned to rest with one eye open. When his eyes snapped open fully, the storm had passed. Silence pressed against the cabin like a held breath. Too silent. He moved to the window without sound. The desert stretched gray and empty in pre-dawn light. Nothing moved. No birds, no wind, just stillness. Wrong. This was wrong. Then he saw it, a reflection, brief, gone in an instant. Metal catching first light, maybe a mile out, maybe less. Riders. "Nolan," his voice was low, urgent. "Wake up." She sat up immediately, no grogginess, survivor's instinct. "What is it?" "Company." Flint grabbed his rifle, began loading it with quick efficiency. "Get your things. We may need to move fast." Nellen Rose began retying her pouch. "How many? Don't know yet. Could be nothing." But his gut said otherwise. His gut said they'd been found. The answer came minutes later. As dawn broke properly, orange and gold, across the desert they appeared. Riders on the ridge east of the cabin. 12 of them spread in a line, watching, waiting. Ice flooded Flint's veins. He recognized that formation. Military, or men-trained military. These weren't random bounty hunters who'd stumbled on a trail. This was organized, professional. And at the center of the line, one man sat taller than the rest. Even at this distance, Flint could see the black duster, the wide-brimmed hat, the stillness of a predator who'd found his prey. "That's him," Nayland whispered. She'd moved to the window beside Flint. "Silas Kane, the one who killed my father." Flint studied the man. Kane didn't move, didn't signal, just sat his horse staring at the cabin. The message was clear. "We know you're here. We know what you have. There's nowhere to run." Then Kane raised his arm, slowly, deliberately, and his voice carried across the desert, clear and cold. "Brennan, I know she's in there." His teeth ground together. They knew his name. Of course they did. Warren would have told them. This wasn't random. This was a trap that had been waiting to spring. I'm giving you one chance, Kane called. Send out the girl and the ledger. Do that, and maybe you live through this morning. Nellen's hand found Flint's arm. Don't. Please. They'll kill me anyway. I know. Flint pulled away, gently moved to load his Colt. How'd they track you here? I don't know. I was careful. She stopped. Realization dawned on her face, ugly and bitter. The horse. When it died, I should have hidden the body. They must have found it, followed my trail from there. 5 miles. She'd walked 5 miles in a storm, thought she'd lost them. But Kane was better than that. Kane was a hunter, and hunters always found their prey. What do we do? Nillen's voice was steady, but Flint heard the fear underneath. He looked at her, at this woman who'd come to his door asking for one night that was about to cost both of them everything. And he made his choice. We fight. He moved to the door, called out, Kane, you're trespassing. Turn around and ride out, or I'll assume you mean harm. Kane's laugh echoed across the desert. Harm Brennan, you're harboring a fugitive. Nayland Redfeather is wanted for murder and theft. I'm here to collect her and restore stolen property. That's a lie, Nayland hissed. Flint nodded. I know. Warren must have put out wanted posters. Made you the criminal. Smart, evil, but smart. Turn the victim into the villain, and every gun in the territory becomes your army. He called back, I don't see a warrant, Kane, and I don't see a badge. Far as I'm concerned, you're just a hired gun on private land. Have it your way, Brennan. Kane's voice hardened. We gave you a chance. What happens now is on your head. Kane's arm dropped. The riders spurred their horses forward, not charging, advancing. Tactical. 4 split left, 4 split right. 4 came straight. They were going to surround the cabin, cut off any escape. Get away from the windows, Flint ordered. He grabbed the table, flipped it on its side for cover. When the shooting starts, you stay down, understand? Nellen didn't argue. She crouched behind the table, pulled a knife from her belt. Small, sharp, well used. She saw Flint looking. My father taught me, she said. If it comes close, I won't go easy. Flint allowed himself a grim smile. Good. The riders were 50 yards out now. 40. Flint moved to the window, sighted down his rifle. He picked his target. The rider coming straight, third from the left. Young, eager, the kind who'd rush first, die first. 30 yards. Flint's finger rested on the trigger. His breathing slowed. Heart rate dropped. Old training taking over. The world narrowed to target wind distance. 20 yards. One of Kane's men shouted something. Pulled a torch from his saddle. Lit it with a match. They were going to burn him out. Son of a bitch, Flint muttered. 15 yards. The rider with the torch cocked his arm back to throw. Flint fired. The rifle's crack split the morning. The rider with the torch jerked backward, torch falling from his hand. He hit the ground hard. The torch landed in dry brush. Began to smoke. All hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through the cabin walls, splinters exploding inward. Flint ducked, chambered another round, came up firing. Caught another rider in the shoulder. The man screamed, dropped his gun. More torches. 2 riders threw them at the cabin. One landed on the roof. Flint heard it hit, heard the crackling as fire found purchase in the old timber. We can't stay here. Nayland shouted over the gunfire. I know. Flint fired again, missed. The riders were circling now, making themselves hard targets. Professional. These weren't cowboys playing at violence. These were killers. Smoke began to fill the cabin. The roof was catching fast. Flames licked at the rafters. Flint made a decision. Back door on 3. He grabbed the ledger from the table, shoved it at Nayland. She took it, shoved it in her pouch. Her eyes met his. No fear now, just determination. 1, Flint fired twice more. 2. He grabbed his Colt in his left hand, rifle in his right. 3. They ran. Flint kicked open the back door. 3 riders had circled around waiting. Flint didn't hesitate. He brought up both guns, fired left and right. The rifle shot caught one rider in the chest. The Colt got another in the leg. The third rider's horse spooked through him. Go! Flint pushed Nayland toward the trees. Run. She ran, fast, like a deer. Flint followed, turning to fire behind him. Riders were coming around the cabin now. Kane in the lead, that black duster flapping like crow wings. Bullets whined past Flint's head. One tugged at his shirt, another kicked up dirt at his feet. He ran harder, reloading the rifle on the move muscle memory from 1,000 drills. Nayland reached the trees, disappeared into the scrub pine and juniper. Flint was 10 yards behind. 5. A bullet found him, not a killing shot. The round had grazed his left shoulder, tearing cloth and skin. Pain bloomed hot and sharp. Flint stumbled, caught himself. kept running. He crashed into the trees. Ahead, he could hear Nayland moving through the brush. He followed the sound branches whipping his face. Behind them, Kane's voice. After them, don't let them reach the canyon. Footsteps. Close. Too close. Flint spun, brought up his rifle. A rider burst through the trees. Flint fired point blank. The man's face disappeared in a spray of red. His horse reared, screaming. No time to think. Flint grabbed the reins, pulled himself into the saddle. The horse was wild with fear and gunfire, but Flint had ridden worse. He spurred it forward, crashed through the brush. Nolan? Here. She stepped out from behind a boulder. Flint pulled the horse up, reached down. She grabbed his hand, his wounded arm. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth, hauled her up behind him. Her arms wrapped around his waist. Go! Flint kicked the horse. It leaped forward, found a game trail, followed it downslope. Behind them, more gunfire, bullets clipping branches. But the trees were thick here, providing cover. They rode hard. Minutes passed. The trees began to thin. Ahead, Flint saw it. The canyon, a narrow cut in the earth 50 feet deep, carved by ancient water. If they could reach it, they could lose the riders in the maze of gullies and ravines. But between them and the canyon was open ground, 100 yards of nothing but scrub and cactus. Hold on, Flint warned. They burst from the trees. The horse's hooves drummed on hardpan. Flint leaned forward. Nolan pressed against his back. Wind tore at them. The sun was fully up now, brutal and bright. Riders emerged from the trees behind them. Kane in the lead. 6 more with him. The others dead or too injured to continue. But 6 was enough. 70 yards to the canyon. Gunfire. A bullet whined past Flint's ear. Another struck rocks, sent fragments spinning. 50 yards. The horse was tiring. They'd pushed it too hard. Its breath came in ragged gasps. 30 yards. Another bullet. This one struck the horse. The animal screamed, went down hard. Flint kicked free, pulled Nayland with him. They hit the ground, rolling, came up running. 20 yards. Flint's shoulder was bleeding freely now. His vision swam, but he kept moving. Nayland beside him, matching him stride for stride. 10 yards. They reached the canyon edge. Without hesitation, they jumped. The fall was brief, terrifying. They hit sandy slopes, slid down in a shower of rocks and dirt, landed hard at the bottom. Flint felt something in his ribs crack. Didn't matter. He grabbed Nayland's hand, pulled her up. This way. They ran deeper into the canyon. The walls rose on either side, limestone carved by water, into fantastic shapes. The narrow passage twisted and turned, perfect for losing pursuit. Above, they could hear the riders. Kane's voice frustrated. Where are they? Find a way down. But the canyon had no easy access, not here. They'd have to ride a mile out of their way to find a slope gentle enough for horses. Flint and Nayland kept moving. They ran until Flint's lungs burned, until his shoulder was a mass of fire, until his legs threatened to give out. Finally, he stopped, leaned against the canyon wall. Nayland stood beside him, breathing hard but still strong. Are you hit? She asked. Shoulder, not bad. Lie, it was bad enough. You know. She looked back the way they'd come. Your cabin. Gone. Flint had seen the flames as they ran. Everything he owned burning. 5 years of solitude. Of peace gone in one night. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Don't be. He met her eyes. I made my choice. I don't regret it. She searched his face. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. She nodded. They rested for a few minutes. Flint used the time to check his weapons. The rifle was gone, lost in the fall, but he still had his Colt. Still had ammunition, still had options. We need to keep moving, he said. Kane won't give up. He'll track us. Where do we go? Good question. Santa Fe was 200 miles northeast, but between here and there was every lawman, every bounty hunter, every man who'd take Warren's money to bring in Nayland Redfeather, dead or alive. But Flint remembered something. A place, a man. There's a church, he said, about 10 miles from here, run by an old preacher, Ezekiel Boone. He used to be a marshal, before he found God. If anyone can help us, it's him. Can we trust him? I don't know. Honest? But we don't have many options. Nolan considered this, nodded. Then we go to him. They started walking. The canyon twisted and turned, sometimes widening into small valleys, sometimes narrowing to barely shoulder width. The sun climbed higher. Heat began to build. Flint's shoulder throbbed. Each step sent pain radiating through his arm. But he kept moving. Had to. Stop meant death. Hours passed. The landscape began to change. The canyon walls lowered. Trees appeared. Cottonwoods, their leaves golden in the autumn light. And finally, as the sun reached its zenith, they saw it. A small wooden church standing alone in a clearing. Simple, honest, a cross rising from the steeple. There, Flint said. They approached cautiously. Flint's hand rested on his Colt, but nothing moved. No sound except wind in the trees. Then the church door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, lean, gray-haired. He wore simple clothes, no collar. But his eyes were sharp, watchful. The eyes of a man who'd seen violence and learned from it. Ezekiel Boone. He looked at Flint, at Nolan, at the blood-soaking Flint's shirt. His weathered face showed no surprise, just sadness, as if he'd known this moment was coming. Flint Brennan, he said quietly. Been 5 years. I wondered if you were still alive. Barely. Flint swayed slightly. The blood loss was catching up. Ezekiel, we need help. Ezekiel's gaze moved to Nayland. And who's this Nayland Redfeather? Joseph's daughter. Recognition flashed in Ezekiel's eyes. Pain too. Joseph, I heard. I'm sorry, child. You knew my father. Nayland's voice caught. I did. Good man. Honest man. Ezekiel stepped aside, gestured to the church. Come inside. Both of you. We'll talk. They entered. The church interior was simple. Wooden pews, a plain altar, candles burning, the smell of cedar and sanctity. Ezekiel closed the door, locked it, then he turned to Flint. Let me see that shoulder. Flint sat. Ezekiel examined the wound with practiced hands. Bullet went through. Clean. You're lucky. Don't feel lucky. You're alive. That's lucky enough. Ezekiel began cleaning the wound. What happened? Flint told him. All of it. The storm. Nayland's arrival. The ledger. Cain's attack. Everything. When he finished, Ezekiel was silent for a long time. His hands had stopped moving. He stared at nothing, lost in thought. Finally, the ledger. May I see it? Nayland hesitated, then pulled it from her pouch, handed it over. Ezekiel took it reverently, opened it, read. His weathered hands trembled as he turned pages. Names he recognized, friends from decades past, good men who'd sold out. Joseph, he whispered. You documented all of it, every betrayal. He looked at Nayland. Your father was a brave man, and they killed him for this truth. Yes, and now they'll kill you too. If you don't get it to someone who can use it. He closed the ledger. Santa Fe, Marshall Wilson. He's the only one I know who's still clean. That's what I said, Flint confirmed. Ezekiel nodded slowly. Then I'll help you get there, but not today. Today you rest, tomorrow we plan. He stood, moved to a cabinet, pulled out blankets. There's a room in back, small but safe. You'll sleep there. I'll keep watch. Ezekiel, Flint started. No arguments, son. You're bleeding and exhausted. The girl's dead on her feet. You push yourselves any further, you'll die before you reach Santa Fe. Rest. That's an order. Coming from anyone else, Flint would have argued, but Ezekiel had been a marshal for 20 years. He'd fought Comanche bandits and every kind of evil the frontier could produce. If he said rest, you rested. Thank you, Nayland said softly. Ezekiel smiled at her. Kind, fatherly. Your daddy would have wanted me to help, and more than that, it's the right thing to do. Now go. Sleep. I'll wake you if trouble comes. They went to the back room. It was as Ezekiel had said, small, just a cot and a chair, but it felt like a palace after the violence of the morning. Nolan sat on the cot. Flint took the chair. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Nolan spoke. You could have let Cain take me. Saved yourself. No, Flint said. I couldn't. Why not? He looked at her, at this woman who'd walked into his life less than 12 hours ago and turned everything upside down. Because your father trusted me. Because that ledger is proof that justice still matters. And because, he trailed off. Because, she prompted. Because you deserve better than what this world's tried to give you. Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding. The beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. Nolan broke the gaze first. Lay down on the cot. Thank you, Flint. Get some sleep. She closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing deepened. Sleep claimed her. Flint sat in the chair, watching over her. His shoulder ached. His body was battered. His cabin was ash. His peaceful life was over, but looking at Nayland, at the woman who'd asked for one night and brought a war to his door, Flint found he didn't regret a single choice he'd made. One night. That's all she'd asked for. But Flint suspected that before this was over, one night would become many, would become a journey, would become something that might just redeem them both, or kill them. Outside, the sun began its descent. And somewhere out there, Silas Kane was hunting, planning, preparing to finish what he'd started. The storm had passed, but the real tempest was only just beginning. Dawn came cold and unforgiving. Flint woke to the sound of horses. His hand found the Colt before his eyes opened muscle memory from years of sleeping light in dangerous country. He sat up in the chair, every muscle screaming protest. His shoulder was a knot of fire where the bullet had grazed him. Nellen was already awake, standing at the small window. She'd heard the horses too. 3 riders, she whispered, coming from the south. Flint moved to her side, looked out. The morning light was gray and uncertain, but he could see them clearly enough. 3 men on horseback moving at a steady walk. Not rushing, not hiding. Confident, too confident. That's not Kane, Nalen said. No, but they're looking for something. Flint watched them approach the church. Or someone. A knock on the door, not the main church entrance, the back room door. Ezekiel's voice low and urgent. Flint, we have visitors. Flint opened the door. Ezekiel stood there, his lined face grave. They're asking about a woman. Apache. Said she's wanted for murder. Offered me $50 for information. What did you tell them? Nothing yet, but they're not leaving until they search the church. Ezekiel's jaw set firm. I can refuse. Claim sanctuary, but that'll just make them suspicious. Flint's mind raced. How many? 3, but they're nervous. Keep looking over their shoulders. I think they're more scared of Kane than they are interested in the reward. Smart men. Flint checked his Colt. 5 rounds. He had maybe 20 more in his belt. Not enough for a prolonged fight. Can we slip out the back? They've got the church surrounded, 1 man watching each approach. Ezekiel pulled a small revolver from his belt. I don't want violence in this house of God, but I won't let them take you. Then we talk our way out. Flint turned to Nalen. Hide the ledger, under the floorboards behind the altar, anywhere they won't look. She nodded, moved quickly. Ezekiel led Flint to the main room of the church. Through the windows, Flint could see the 3 men. Townsmen by their look. Not professional guns, just ordinary men chasing extraordinary money. The leader knocked again. Harder. Reverend Boone, we know you're in there. Open up. Ezekiel opened the door, stood in the frame blocking entry. Gentlemen, it's early for visitors. The leader was a thick man with a beard going gray. He wore a shopkeeper's apron under his coat. Behind him stood 2 younger men, probably his sons. All 3 carried rifles. All 3 looked like they'd never shot a man in their lives. Reverend, we don't want trouble, the bearded man said. But there's a woman, Indian woman, killed a rancher up in Arizona, stole his property. There's a reward, $10,000. You seen anyone like that? I've seen many souls in need of salvation, Ezekiel said calmly. None of them murderers, far as I know. We got word she was headed this way. On foot. She'd be desperate. Maybe came asking for help. Many come asking for help. It's what churches are for. The bearded man's patience frayed. We're coming in, Reverend, just to look. You got nothing to hide. You got nothing to fear. He pushed past Ezekiel. His sons followed. Flint stepped out from beside the door, Colt leveled. That's far enough. All 3 men froze. The bearded man's eyes went wide. Who the hell are you? Someone who doesn't appreciate men barging into churches with guns. Flint's voice was flat. Dead. The voice he'd used as a ranger when he wanted men to understand he wasn't bluffing. Turn around. Walk out. Forget you were here. You're hiding her, one of the sons said. Young, stupid. His hand twitched toward his rifle. Don't. Flint's Colt never wavered. I've killed men for less. You want to be next? The bearded man held up his hands. Easy now. We don't want trouble. Just looking for a fugitive, that's all. There's no fugitive here. Just a preacher, a traveler, and 3 men who are about to leave. We got it right. You got nothing. Flint took a step forward. This is church property, sacred ground. You come in here armed, making demands. You're the ones breaking the law. Now I'm giving you to the count of 3 to get out. After that, I stop being polite. The father looked at his sons, saw the fear in their eyes. These were farmers or merchants playing at manhunting. Not killers. Not like Flint. We're going, the bearded man said. But Kane's going to hear about this. I'm counting on it. Flint smiled. No warmth in it. 1. They backed toward the door. You're making a mistake, mister. 2. They ran, mounted their horses and rode hard to the south, dust rising in their wake. Flint lowered the Colt. His hand was steady, but inside his heart hammered. That had been close. Too close. Ezekiel closed the door. They'll tell Kane. I know. He'll come with more men. I know that too. Flint turned. We need to leave, now, before Kane gets here. Nolan emerged from the back room, the ledger secured in her pouch. I heard. How long do we have? Ezekiel considered. Those men will ride straight to wherever Kane is camped. Figure 2 hours there, however long it takes Kane to gather his men and ride here. Maybe 6 hours total. Maybe less. Then we have 6 hours to put distance between us and this place. Flint looked at Ezekiel. You have horses. 2, old, but they'll carry you. Good. We'll take them head east, cross the Rio Grande, lose Kane in the Badlands. East? Nayland frowned. Santa Fe is north, which is exactly where Kane will expect us to go. We circle around, come at Santa Fe from the south. Take longer, but we'll be alive to get there. Ezekiel moved to a cabinet, pulling out supplies. Dried meat, hardtack, 2 canteens. Take these, and this. He handed Flint a rifle. Winchester, good weapon. You'll need it more than me. Ezekiel. No arguments, I'm an old man. My fighting days are behind me, but yours are just beginning. He gripped Flint's good shoulder. Get that ledger to Santa Fe. Make Joseph's death mean something. Flint nodded. Words felt inadequate. He settled for thank you. They gathered their meager supplies. Ezekiel brought the horses around, 2 mares gray and brown with gentle eyes. They weren't war horses, but they do. Flint helped Nayland mount the brown mare. She sat the horse like she'd been born to it. Apache skill. Then he pulled himself onto the gray, gritting his teeth as his shoulder protested. Ezekiel stood in the doorway of his church. The morning sun was behind him, making his white hair glow like a halo. Flint, one more thing. Yeah. Don't let the darkness in this ledger make you forget there's still light in the world. Still good people. Still hope. Flint looked at the old preacher, at the man who'd given up the gun for the cross, traded violence for peace. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. They rode east. The land opened before them, vast and unforgiving. Behind them, the church grew smaller until it was just a white speck against the brown earth. Then it disappeared entirely. They rode hard for 3 hours. The sun climbed higher, heat building despite the autumn season. The desert didn't care what month it was always ready to kill you. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses. A small outcropping of rock provided shade. Flint dismounted, every movement agony. The wound in his shoulder had reopened during the ride. Fresh blood stained his shirt. Nayland saw it. You need to let me clean that. It's fine. It's not fine. Sit down. Her tone left no room for argument. Flint sat. Nayland tore a strip from her dress, wet it with water from the canteen. She began cleaning the wound with gentle, practiced hands. Your father teach you this too? Flint asked. My mother, before she died. Nayland's voice was soft with memory. She was a healer, knew which plants stopped infection, which ones reduced pain. She taught me everything she could before the fever took her. How old were you? 12. She worked in silence for a moment. My father raised me after that, just the 2 of us. He said I was all he had left of her. That's why he taught me to read, to write, to think. He wanted me to survive in the white man's world and the Apache world both. He did well. You're strong. She met his eyes. I don't feel strong. I feel scared. Being scared and being strong aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing. She finished bandaging his shoulder, tied it off. There, it should hold. Thank you. They sat together in the shade, sharing water, sharing silence. Flint found himself watching her, the way sunlight caught in her dark hair, the set of her jaw, the quiet strength in every movement. She caught him looking. What? Nothing. Just thinking. About how one night ago I was alone in my cabin, had my peace, had my solitude. Now I'm running from killers, bleeding, and probably going to die before we see Santa Fe. Do you regret it? The question was quiet, almost afraid. Flint considered. Honest answer, no. Strange as it sounds, I don't. First time in 5 years I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Fighting for justice. Fighting for you. The words hung between them. Nayland's breath caught. Her eyes searched his face. Flint. We should keep moving, he said, standing abruptly. The moment had gotten too heavy, too real. Still got ground to cover. They rode on. The land began to change. The desert gave way to scrubland, then to rolling hills covered in juniper and pinyon. In the distance, a silver line marked the Rio Grande. By late afternoon, they reached the river. It flowed wide and fast, swollen from autumn rains in the mountains. The crossing would be dangerous. Flint studied the water. There's a ford about a mile south, shallow water, easier crossing. That'll take us closer to Kane's last known position. I know, but trying to swim the horses across here could drown us both. They turned south following the riverbank. The sound of rushing water filled the air. Birds called from the cottonwoods. It was almost peaceful. That's when the gunshot came. The bullet struck Rock inches from Flint's head. He reacted on instinct, threw himself from the saddle, pulling Nolan down with him. They hit the ground, hard rolled behind a boulder. More gunshots. 6 riders burst from the trees along the riverbank. Kane's men. They'd been waiting. Somehow they'd known. Go! Flint shoved Nayland toward the river. Cross here, don't wait for me. I'm not leaving you. That wasn't a request. He brought up his Winchester, fired. 1 rider went down, 5 left. Nolan hesitated 1 heartbeat, then she ran, straight into the river. The water hit her waist deep, the current strong. She fought it, pushed forward. Flint provided cover fire. 2 shots, 3. Another rider fell, but they were closing. 20 yards, 15. Flint ran, hit the water. The cold shocked his system, made his wounded shoulder scream. The current grabbed him, tried to pull him under. He fought it, keeping the rifle above water, his boots finding purchase on slippery rocks. Bullets churned the water around him. 1 tugged at his coat. Another sparked off a rock by his head. Ahead, Nellen had made it halfway across. The water was deeper here, up to her chest. She was struggling. Flint pushed harder, his legs burned, his lungs burned. Everything was fire and cold water, and the certain knowledge that 1 bullet was going to find him. Then he was beside Nolan. Keep going. I can't, current's too strong. Flint grabbed her hand. Together. We go together. They pushed forward. The river fought them with every step. Behind them, the riders had reached the bank. They were dismounting, taking aim. Better shots on foot. Gunfire erupted, heavier, louder, but not from behind, from ahead. Flint looked up. On the far bank, 3 men with rifles. They were firing at Kane's men, providing cover. Who? Nayland started. Don't know. Don't care. Move. They surged forward. The water began to shallow. 3 feet, 2 feet. Then they were stumbling onto the far bank, soaked and gasping. The 3 men lowered their rifles. The leader stepped forward. He was tall, weathered, with a U.S. Marshal's badge on his vest. Flint Brennan, he asked. Flint nodded, too winded to speak. Marshal Davis Wilson, I've been looking for you. Behind them across the river, Kane's men were retreating, outgunned, outmaneuvered. But they'd be back. Kane didn't give up. Wilson gestured to his men. Get them warm. We need to talk. 10 minutes later, Flint and Nayland sat by a fire wrapped in blankets. Wilson's deputies kept watch while Wilson himself crouched beside them. How did you know we'd be here? Flint asked. I didn't, but I got word from Reverend Boone. He sent a rider soon as you left. Said you'd be heading this way, probably crossing at the South Ford. I took a gamble. Ezekiel sent you. Not just me. He sent word to Santa Fe, too, to the territorial governor, about the ledger. Wilson's eyes were sharp. Is it true you have proof of the corruption? Nolan pulled the ledger from her pouch, water-stained but intact. She handed it to Wilson. He opened it. His finger traced down columns. Professional assessment. Counting names like counting enemies. Half the lawmen in 3 territories, he said quietly. Strategic mind calculating the pardon. He looked at Nayland. Miss Redfeather, your father was a hero, and this changes everything. He looked at Flint. But it also makes you both targets. Every man in this book will want you dead. We know. That's why we need to get to Santa Fe. Get it to the governor or a judge or someone who can use it. The governor's in Denver right now, won't be back for 2 weeks. Wilson thought for a moment. But there's a federal judge in Las Cruces, Judge Harrison. He's clean. I'd stake my life on it. We get the ledger to him, he can issue warrants, start investigations. Las Cruces is what, 30 miles south? About that, 2 days' ride if we push. Wilson stood. But Kane knows you're headed north to Santa Fe. He won't expect a southern route. Unless he has men in Las Cruces too. He might, but that's a risk we'll have to take. Wilson offered his hand to Flint. What do you say? Trust a marshal one more time. Flint studied Wilson's face. Saw honesty there. Integrity. The kind of man Flint had once aspired to be. He took the offered hand. Let's do it. They rode through the afternoon and into evening. Wilson's deputies were good men, alert and professional. They kept a perimeter watch for pursuit, but the land remained quiet. As sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red, they made camp in a small canyon. Wilson's men built a fire, cooked beans and bacon. The smell was intoxicating after a day of running and fear. Nayland sat beside Flint close enough that their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. You think we'll make it? She asked quietly. I don't know, but we've made it this far. Because of you. Because of both of us. He looked at her. In the firelight, she was beautiful. Not just physically, something deeper, something that called to the broken parts of him and whispered that maybe they could be whole again. Flint, she stopped, started again. When this is over, if we survive, what will you do? Haven't thought that far ahead. Think about it now. He did. Saw his cabin burning, saw his old life turning to ash, saw the possibility of something new, something better. Maybe I'll stay in Santa Fe, he said slowly. See if Wilson needs a deputy. Get back to doing what I'm good at. Fighting for justice. Something like that. He paused. What about you? My father always wanted me to teach. Said education was the only way our people would survive the changing world. Maybe I could do that, open a school on the reservation. Teach Apache children to read and write. You'd be good at that. You think so? I know so. He wanted to say more. Wanted to tell her that he saw a future where maybe they could both build something new. Together. But the words stuck in his throat. Too much, too soon. Wilson approached, coffee pot in hand. Mind if I join you? They made room. Wilson poured coffee, handed them each a cup. I've been thinking about the ledger, about what happens when it goes public. Trials, Flint said. Arrests, justice. Maybe, or maybe chaos. Wilson stared into the fire. You expose 50 corrupt lawmen, that's 50 towns without law. You arrest judges, that's courts that can't function. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be ready for what comes after. You think we shouldn't? No, I think you should. But I also think you need to understand the cause. This ledger doesn't just destroy bad men, it destroys faith in the system. And rebuilding that faith, that takes time. Takes good people willing to step up. Flint understood what Wilson was really saying. This wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was about being willing to help rebuild what came after. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Flint said. Wilson nodded. Fair enough, get some sleep. We leave at first light. He walked away. Nayland finished her coffee, set down the cup. He's right, you know, about what comes after. I know. Are you ready for that? Flint looked at her, at this woman who'd brought a storm into his life and refused to let him hide from it. With you, yeah, I think I am. She smiled, small but genuine, the first real smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less burdened. Good, she said, because I'm not doing this alone. That night, Flint slept better than he had in years. Not because he was safe. They weren't. Not because the danger had passed. It hadn't. But because for the first time since he'd lost his badge, since he'd been beaten and left for dead, since he'd given up on everything he believed in, Flint felt like he was fighting for something that mattered. And he wasn't fighting alone. Morning came too soon. They broke camp before sunrise, rode hard through the gray dawn. The land was rougher here, all mesas and canyons. Good country for ambushes. Wilson kept scouts ahead and behind, cautious, professional. But noon came and went without incident. By mid-afternoon, they could see Las Cruces in the distance, a small town, adobe buildings clustered around a central plaza. Almost there, Wilson said. Judge Harrison's office is in the courthouse. We get the ledger to him, he can... The gunshot cut him off. Wilson jerked in his saddle. Blood bloomed on his chest. He looked down at it, surprised. Then he fell. Ambush, one of the deputies shouted. Gunfire erupted from the rocks above them. Flint threw himself from his horse, pulled Nayland down. They scrambled for cover behind a boulder. Wilson's deputies returned fire. One went down, then another. Whoever was shooting, they had the high ground. Perfect position. Flint risked a look, saw muzzle flashes from 3 different positions, at least 6 guns, maybe more. Wilson, he called. The marshal was still moving, crawling toward cover, one hand pressed to his chest. Blood seeped between his fingers. One of his deputies reached him, dragged him behind a rock. We're pinned, the deputy shouted. Can't advance. Flint's mind raced. They couldn't stay here. Couldn't retreat. Had to break the ambush. He looked at Nayland. I need you to do something. What? Take the ledger. When I start shooting, you run. Straight down the canyon. Don't stop. Get to Las Cruces. Find Judge Harrison. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He grabbed her shoulders. That ledger is what matters. Not me. Not Wilson. That. You get it to the judge. All of this means something. You understand? She was crying. When had she started crying? Flint, please. I'll be right behind you, I promise. He kissed her. Hard. Fast. Tasting salt and gunpowder and fear. Now go. He stood broad up the Winchester and started firing. Methodical, controlled, laying down covering fire. Nayland ran. Flint saw her sprint down the canyon, saw the shooters turn their guns toward her. He adjusted his aim and shot the nearest one. The man fell. "Cover her," Flint yelled to Wilson's remaining deputy. The deputy understood, started firing upward, keeping the ambushers' heads down. Nolan was 50 yards away, 70, 100. Then she was around the bend. Gone. Safe. Flint dropped behind cover. Bullets chewed the rock around him. He reloaded, fired again. One more ambusher down. But there were still 4 left, and he was almost out of ammunition. The deputy beside Wilson fell, shot in the head, dead before he hit the ground. Just Flint and the wounded marshal now. "Brennan," Wilson's voice was weak. "Get out of here. Not without you. I'm done. Bullets in my lung. I can feel it." Wilson coughed, blood on his lips. "But you can still make it." "Oh." "No," a voice from above, familiar, cold. "Brennan, I know you're down there." Silas Kane. "You've run far enough," Kane called. "The girl's gone, but I still have you. And you're going to tell me where she went, or I'll make your death last days." Flint checked his ammunition. 3 bullets left in the Winchester, 5 in the Colt. Not enough, but maybe enough to take Kane with him. He looked at Wilson. The marshal was fading fast, but his eyes were clear, determined. "Make it count," Wilson whispered. "Whatever you do, make it count." Flint nodded, grabbed the marshal's rifle, extra ammunition. Then he stood. "Kane," he shouted. "You want me? Come get me." He ran, not away from the ambush, toward it, straight up the rocks, firing as he went. Bullets whined past him. One struck his leg. Pain exploded, but he kept moving, climbing, shooting. He reached the first position. 2 men, he shot them both. Kept moving. The second position. 1 man. Flint's Winchester clicked empty. He dropped it, pulled his Colt, shot the man in the chest. Then he was at the top. And there, standing among the rocks, was Silas Kane. The bounty hunter looked almost disappointed. "Brennan, you could have run, could have saved yourself." "Not my style." Flint's Colt was aimed at Kane's chest. Kane's gun aimed at Flint's head. Mexican standoff. "The girl's got the ledger," Kane said. "She'll make it to Las Cruces. Give it to the judge. All this for nothing." "Not nothing. She'll live. That's something." Kane smiled. "Cold. Dead. You love her. I can see it. Does she love you?" "Doesn't matter." "It does. Because you're going to die knowing you'll never find out." "Maybe, but you're dying too." They both fired. Flint felt the bullet punch through his chest, felt his legs give out. He fell backward, tumbling down the rocks. His last thought before the darkness took him was simple: "I kept my promise. She's safe." Pain. That was the first thing Flint knew. Not the white, sharp pain of the bullet. Something deeper, duller. The pain of a body trying desperately to stay alive. Then sound. Voices, distant, echoing like he was underwater. He's still breathing. Barely, lost a lot of blood. "Get him inside, quickly." Hands, lifting him. Every movement a fresh agony. Flint tried to open his eyes, couldn't. The darkness held him tight. Time became meaningless. There were moments of half-consciousness. Faces swimming above him, cool water on his lips, the smell of antiseptic and blood. Pain that came in waves, drowning him, then receding just enough to let him breathe. And through it all, a voice, her voice. "Don't you die on me, Flint Brennan. Don't you dare." Nayland. She was alive. The ledger was safe. That knowledge let him sink back into darkness without fear. When Flint finally woke fully, truly, the sun was streaming through a window. He was in a bed, clean sheets, white walls, the smell of medicine. He tried to sit up. His chest exploded in protest. He gasped, fell back. Easy. Nayland was there beside the bed, her hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. "The doctor said you're not to move. The bullet went through your chest, missed your heart by 2 inches. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days, Flint's voice came out as a croak. "Kane, dead. You shot him through the throat. He died on those rocks." Her eyes were red-rimmed. From crying or lack of sleep, Flint couldn't tell. "Marshal Wilson died too, and both his deputies. You were the only one who survived." The weight of that hit Flint hard. Good men. Dead. Because of him. Because of the ledger. Was it worth it? His voice was bitter. 3 men dead. For a book. Yes, Nayland's voice was steel. Don't you dare dishonor their sacrifice by doubting it. Wilson knew what he was fighting for. So did his men. They died so the truth could live. The ledger. Judge Harrison has it. He's already issued 20 warrants. U.S. Marshals are riding out today to make arrests. Territorial governor cut his trip short, coming back to oversee everything. She squeezed his hand. It's happening, Flint. Justice is happening. Flint closed his eyes, felt tears leak from the corners. Relief, grief, a tangled mess of emotions he didn't have words for. I thought I'd lost you, Nayland whispered, when they brought you in so much blood. I promised I'd be right behind you. You're a terrible liar. But she was smiling through tears. 3 days late doesn't count as right behind. I'll work on my timing. She laughed, soft, beautiful. Then she leaned down and kissed him. Gentle, careful of his injuries. But there was promise in that kiss. Future. When she pulled back, Flint saw it in her eyes. Everything he'd been too scared to hope for. Nayland, shh, rest. We'll talk when you're stronger. She started to pull away. Flint caught her hand. I love you. The words surprised him as much as her. He hadn't meant to say them, hadn't planned it, but lying in that bed, having come so close to death, Flint found he couldn't keep them in anymore. Nayland's breath caught. Her eyes searched his face. You don't have to. I know, but I wanted to, needed to. His grip on her hand tightened. You asked me what I'd do after this was over. Truth is, I want to do it with you, whatever it is, wherever it is, if you'll have me. She was crying again, but smiling too. You stupid, stubborn cowboy. Of course I'll have you. She kissed him again. Longer this time, and in that kiss, Flint tasted hope. Real hope. The kind he hadn't felt in 5 years. Recovery was slow, painful. Flint spent 2 more weeks in the Las Cruces doctor's care before he could walk without help. Another week before he could ride. During that time, the world changed. Newspaper headlines told the story. Corruption exposed Red Feather Ledger brings down 50 officials. Captain Bram Warren arrested. Former Texas Ranger faces murder charges. Territorial governor promises reform. No more corrupt lawmen. Judge Harrison visited Flint's sickbed regularly, keeping him informed. The judge was a small man with wire-rimmed spectacles and the kind of quiet authority that came from decades of honest service. Your Miss Red Feather is quite remarkable, Harrison said during one visit. She's testified before 3 grand juries already. Knows her father's ledger front to back. Every name, every crime. She's going to make a formidable witness at the trials. She's not my Miss Red Feather, Flint said. Harrison smiled. Isn't she? The way she refuses to leave your side suggests otherwise. Flint couldn't argue with that. Nayland was there every day. Reading to him. Talking. Sometimes just sitting in silence. Her presence was a comfort deeper than any medicine. On the day Flint was finally released, Harrison came with news. Bram Warren's trial starts next week. The prosecutor wants you to testify about what happened 5 years ago. Your assault, the corruption. Flint nodded slowly. I'll be there. It won't be easy. Warren's lawyer will try to tear you apart on the stand. They'll paint you as a disgraced ranger with a grudge. Let them try. Aussie Flint's voice was hard. I've got truth on my side. That's more than Warren has. The trial was held in Santa Fe. The territorial capital's courthouse was packed. Spectators, press, people hungry for justice after years of corruption. Flint sat in the witness box facing Bram Warren across the courtroom. The former captain looked older. Gray hair, deep lines around his mouth. But his eyes still held that same arrogance, that certainty that he was above consequences. The prosecutor was a young man named Thomas Fletcher. Sharp, prepared. Mr. Brennan, Fletcher began, tell the court what happened on August 15th, 1881. Flint told it. All of it. The cattle baron's bribe, his refusal, Warren and 2 other rangers beating him, leaving him to die with a canteen full of sand. And why didn't you report this to authorities? Fletcher asked. Because Warren was the authority, him and men like him. Who was I going to tell the sheriff he'd bought the judge on his payroll? The system was rotten. Reporting it would have just gotten me killed. Warren's lawyer objected. Speculation. The witness has no proof. I have proof now. Flint gestured to where Nayland sat in the gallery, the ledger on her lap. Joseph Red Feather documented everything, including what Warren did to me. The trial lasted 3 days. Fletcher was methodical, building his case piece by piece. Witness after witness, document after document. On the 3rd day, they called Nayland. She took the stand with her head high, proud, unafraid. She told the story of her father, of his 15 years documenting corruption, of his murder. Warren's lawyer tried to rattle her. Miss Redfeather, isn't it true your father was compensated by various officials for his services? My father accepted nothing. Her voice cut like a blade. He documented crimes because it was right, because someone had to. And he died for it, while men like Captain Warren got rich selling justice. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Warren's face went white when the verdict was read. He looked at Flint. For just a moment, the arrogance cracked. Fear showed through. 25 years hard labor, the judge pronounced. May God have mercy on your soul, Captain Warren. This court has none. Outside the courthouse, Flint and Nayland stood in the autumn sunshine. Around them, people celebrated. Justice finally after so long. One down, Nolan said. 49 to go. You don't have to testify at all of them. Yes, I do. I owe it to my father, to Marshall Wilson, to everyone who died so the truth could come out. She looked at him. And you're going to be right there with me. Aren't you? Flint took her hand. Every single one. The trials continued through fall and into winter. Some ended in convictions. Some in acquittals when evidence wasn't strong enough. But enough guilty verdicts came down that the message was clear: corruption would no longer be tolerated. Through it all, Flint and Nayland were together. As winter turned to spring, something else grew alongside the trials. Love. Real love. Built on shared struggle. On trust earned in blood and fire. On the simple fact that they'd looked into the darkness together and refused to blink. In March, Flint took a job as deputy to the new U.S. Marshal in Santa Fe. A clean man. Honest. The kind of lawman Flint had once aspired to be. In April, Nolan began organizing funds to build a school on the Apache reservation. The Red Feather School, she wanted to call it. A place where Apache children could learn to read and write just as her father had taught her. In May, on a warm evening with the desert blooming after spring rains, Flint asked her to marry him. They were sitting on the porch of his new cabin. Small, but honest. Built with his own hands to replace what had burned. I don't have much, Flint said. Deputy's salary isn't great. This cabin's barely bigger than a shack. But what I have, it's clean. It's mine. And I want to share it with you. Nolan looked at the simple ring he offered. Silver with a small turquoise stone. Apache craftsmanship from a jeweler in town. You're asking me to marry you? Her voice was soft, wondering. I am. If you'll have a broken-down ex-ranger with more scars than sense. Yes. No hesitation. Yes, Flint Brennan. I'll marry you. The wedding was simple. Judge Harrison officiated. The new marshal stood as Flint's best man. Apache elders from Nayland's tribe came to give their blessing. It was small, intimate, perfect. Governor Pike himself attended, a gesture of respect for what Flint and Nayland had done. You two changed this territory, Pike told them at the reception. Made it cleaner? Safer. I'm not sure you understand the magnitude of what you accomplished. We just did what was right, Nayland said. Exactly. And that's rarer than you think. Pike raised his glass. To Flint and Nolan Brennan. May they have the peace they've earned. Peace, it was a strange concept after so much violence. But as Flint looked at his new wife, saw the joy in her eyes, he thought maybe peace was possible after all. 3 months later, Nolan told him she was pregnant. The news hit Flint like a thunderbolt. A child. His child. The idea terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. Are you happy? Nolan asked, watching his face. I don't know what I am, Flint admitted. Scared, excited, overwhelmed, all of it. Me too. She took his hand, placed it on her still flat stomach. But we'll figure it out. Together. Together. That word had become their anchor, their promise. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Nolan suffered from sickness in the early months. But she was strong, stubborn. By the time autumn came again, she was glowing with health. The Red Feather School opened that September. 20 students on the first day. Apache children eager to learn. Nayland taught them herself, her belly growing with child, her father's legacy alive in every lesson. Flint would stop by sometimes on his marshal rounds. Watch through the window as Nolan taught reading, writing, arithmetic, saw the children's faces light up with understanding, saw the future being built one lesson at a time. Winter came, and with it labor. Flint had faced down gunfights, ambushes, death itself. But nothing terrified him like watching Nolan in labor, the pain, the struggle, the way she gripped his hand hard enough to break bones and told him through gritted teeth that this was all his fault. I know, he said. I'm sorry, I love you. I love you too, she gasped. But I'm still angry. The midwife laughed. First baby. Yes, Flint said. They're always the hardest. But she's strong. She'll be fine. The midwife was right. After 12 hours of labor as dawn broke over the New Mexico desert, Joseph Brennan came into the world. Named for Nolan's father. Named for sacrifice and truth and the belief that one good man could change the world. Flint held his son for the first time and wept. This tiny perfect thing, this life he and Nolan had created, this hope made flesh. He's beautiful, Nolan whispered, exhausted but radiant. He looks like you. He has your stubborn chin. They laughed together, new parents, exhausted, terrified, overflowing with love. Time passed, Joseph grew, learned to crawl, to walk, to talk. His first word was Papa. His second was book, which made Nolan cry happy tears. The trials continued, slowly. The wheels of justice turned. More convictions, more corrupt men brought down. The ledger's work wasn't done, but it was working. Flint continued as deputy marshal. He was good at it. Fair, honest, the kind of lawman the territory needed. But he made sure to be home every night, to be there for Joseph, for Nolan. Family came first now. Nolan's school grew. By the third year, they had 50 students. By the fifth, they needed to build a second building. Apache children were learning, thriving, carrying forward Joseph Redfeather's dream. 5 years after that night in the storm, Flint stood on his porch watching the sunset. Joseph, now 4 years old, played in the yard with a wooden horse Flint had carved. Nolan emerged from the cabin, wiping flour from her hands. Dinner's almost ready. Flint put his arm around her, pulled her close. I was just thinking. About how 5 years ago I thought my life was over. Thought I'd lost everything that mattered. Then you knocked on my door. Best decision I ever made. You asked for one night. I know, she smiled. Got a lot more than that, didn't I? We both did. A rider appeared on the horizon, coming fast. Flint tensed, old instincts flaring. But it was just a courier from town. The young man reined in, handed Flint an envelope. From Governor Pike, sir. Said it was important. Flint opened it, read. His eyebrows rose. What is it? Nolan asked. Pike wants me to come to Santa Fe. Says he's starting a new training program for territorial marshals. Wants me to run it. Teach the next generation how to be honest lawmen. That's wonderful. You'd be perfect for that. It would mean more time away from home. Travel. Teaching. Nolan looked at him seriously. Flint Brennan, you spent 5 years hiding from the world. Then you spent 5 years helping fix it. If the governor thinks you can teach others to do the same, you should do it. But Joseph needs a father who does what's right, who fights for justice. You can be that and still be home for dinner most nights. Flint considered, thought about all the young men who'd come up the way he had, who believed in justice but didn't know how to navigate a corrupt system, who needed someone to show them the right path. I'll do it, he said, on one condition. What? You come with me sometimes. Show those young marshals the woman who helped bring down 50 corrupt officials. Show them what real courage looks like. Nolan kissed him. Deal. That night after Joseph was asleep, Flint and Nolan sat together on their porch. The desert stretched before them, vast and peaceful under starlight. They sat without speaking. Joseph's laughter drifted from inside the cabin. Nolan's hand found his, squeezed once. Understanding passed between them wordlessly. Everything they'd survived, everything they'd built. It all came back to one choice. One stormy night, one knock on the door. Flint had opened it and found his future. The stars wheeled overhead. The desert breathed its ancient song. Far east, almost beyond, seeing dust rose against moonlight. A rider, moving fast through darkness. Flint saw it. His hand touched the colt at his hip. Reflex, always ready. The rider passed, disappeared into the vast black desert. Nolan noticed his posture. Trouble, no, and Flint relaxed. Not tonight. He believed it, mostly, because he'd learned justice was a watch you kept, a promise you honored, a door you opened when strangers knocked in storms. Some lessons lasted forever. The ledger had changed the territory, but Nolan had changed him. And that Flint thought, as sleep began to claim him, was the greater miracle. The storm had passed long ago, but its legacy remained. In a school full of Apache children learning to read, in corrupt men brought to justice, in young marshals learning honor from a man who'd lost it and found it again, in a child named Joseph carrying his grandfather's name and his parents' hope. One night, one woman, one ledger. And everything changed, not just for Flint, not just for Nolan, but for a territory learning that justice, real justice, was still possible. If you were brave enough to fight for it, if you were strong enough to see it through, if you believed that one person, one choice, one moment of courage could change the world, Flint Brennan believed, and that belief had saved him.